All right, welcome back to another episode of F1 Fanatics. I'm here with Roman, who's in India, Kunle Williams, who's in Lagos, Nigeria. And we want to say welcome to Roman again. The man behind the curtain finally has a face. And he wears glasses like all of us, except for not sunglasses.
And he's very handsome.
Yes, I guess so. I don't judge males, but I guess so. And also he has the right shirt on. The right shirt. Okay.
Well, I have 5 children, so I'm comfortable in my masculinity.
I'm just kidding too. Yeah, he looked good. He looked good. I ain't gonna lie, he looked good. I was expecting, because he didn't have the camera, to see Jabba the Hutt, but it's not Jabba the Hutt. So
yeah, I actually do. I also expected to see Patty Boom Boom.
Yeah. All right. So let's get started.
It's all right.
So let's get started. So we're going to continue talking about Audi and Cadillac and what their chances are this year. And we're going to focus on their engines today and see what some of the pros and cons of their engines are. I think we all agree that maybe Audi might have a little bit of an advantage coming into this year because of their personnel that's been together and that's coherent. We'll start off by looking at Cadillac's engine. And Cadillac is going to be supplied by Ferrari. And we're moving away from MGHU, which is works by MGH. Yeah, I think that's what it is. It works by heat. Now we're moving to kinetic energy from the engines. And one of the innovations that Ferrari and Cadillac are going to be using is that they're going to have a steel cylinder, which is going to be used. And that's going to allow for better heating, more heat, and better thermal efficiency for the engine and for the whole system, especially since we know that these fuels are going to be viscous. So having more heat is a good thing because it helps make the fuel higher temperatures and also better flow of the fuel. But the only issue is that it's going to be 10 to 25 kilograms heavier. Now, we're going to talk to Roman, who's our resident geek tech of F1, to talk about whether this should be a concern since they're going to be 10 to 25 kgs heavier. We're believing that a lot of the teams will probably be coming in with a heavy engine, but that might negate any advantages they have in fuel efficiency, in thermal efficiency, and in heating. What are your thoughts, Roman, about that? Yeah.
Hello. I guess I'm more of a nerd than a geek, but speaking about the weight about Ferrari and other engines, the main innovation they're going for is higher thermal efficiency with a steel head. So meaning they can use a lot of fuel to generate a lot of heat, which can make the engine itself more efficient to run. But it comes at a cost of running steel heads, and steel by itself is a lot heavier than aluminium, which every other manufacturer has been using for many decades. So this is actually the first time since, I believe, 1970 that a steel head is being used again in Formula One. And the way they're using it is quite interesting. Usually, you would try to put steel heads where you have issue with reliability, right? For example, your engines are blowing up because you just can't contain them. So you go with something like a steel head to contain them. But instead of doing that, what Ferrari is trying to do is to edge some performance out of the thermal efficiency where they can get a higher temperature, mean they can get a boost of power. That is what Ferrari is trying to do with this. But the problem with the steel is, again, it's heavier, right? So it's 10 to 25 kilos more heavier than the standard Ferrari power unit. And that is over a lap, a second slower, just because of the weight. So whatever efficiency they gain from this has to negate that cost of a second or half a second per lap downside. And it is to be noted that everyone, it is quite literally everyone, will be overweight for the start of the season, including the engines. So will Ferrari be the heaviest car with the engine, or did they make some aerodynamical sacrifices to maintain this engine efficiency? And how will this affect Cadillac, who's making their own chassis and has to work on this engine, which is already overweight? So they make some sacrifices on the chassis, cut down some weight over there, get some weight off the suspension, make sure the aerodynamics are not too heavy. It's a massive challenge to Cadillac to begin with, starting with such a heavy engine and being so down in power already. So it will be very difficult for them.
Yeah. So they're going to, sorry, very quickly, I'll come back to you. They're going to be using the Ferrari power unit. So are they going to have a lack of power because of that, or is it a way that they're going to be integrating the engine? Because Is Ferrari going to be weaker in power? Oh yeah, do they have a deficit in power? The Ferrari engine or the power unit? Yeah.
There hasn't been much rumors about deficits of the power. It just has proven to be more unreliable than any other power unit so far. Is what the rumors say.
Ferrari has too many problems, man. Jeez, man.
Yeah, but they do have the performance. What they're trying to find out now is the reliability.
Reliability, yeah.
They do have the speed.
Yeah. Sorry, Roman. Yeah, so that's good. So continue. What are your thoughts on it?
My thoughts on this is that if they're trying to push performance so much to a point where they're trying to consider or do a steel alloy cap like this, meaning that they're really pushing for performance, it's an indication of two things. Either they're really confident in their ability to manage the weight management to negate the issues with higher engine weight, or they're really being conservative and trying to get all the performance they can. There can only be two results here. So that's my thought.
And that's two different types of strategies, because you might think that maybe they want to push the limit to really make sure they make up for that weight, or they can go the other way and, like you said, sustain, not push the limit, but look for more economy throughout. So what do you think? Which way do you think they'll be leaning towards? Which one makes more sense in terms of physics or chemistry? Yeah. Which strategy?
If history is to be believed, I think they're going with the latter, trying to push as much as performance as possible because they're lacking performance somewhere else.
Yeah, so you have to push it as much. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Thank you. Very good one. Very good one. What are your thoughts, Kunle?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's so impossible to tell because both Audi and Cadillac are coming in with new engine powertrains. And Cadillac is using Ferrari's engine. Audi has shown that the powertrain has been performing well in testing early on. Ferraris as Roman has said, has had issues with reliability. The advantage that Cadillac has is that they can just simply focus on the aerodynamics and other areas of the car, whilst Audi are focusing, because it's Audi's engine, they're focusing on both things. I think Cadillac are looking more long term. I think that this season they just want to find where they are. I think it's similar for Audi. I mock and I say, "Oh, American Cadillac," but it's only because when I hear Cadillac, I think of Buick. I don't think of Cobra Shelby or Dodge or they do have fast cars, but those are the kind of names I would have associated with an American racing car company. So this is all very new, and both teams do have a lot of resources behind them. Especially in terms of wind tunnels and so on and so forth, and the aerodynamics. I think that they both have a good standing in that area. But both are quite experimental for this season.
Yeah, I would say that maybe, we'll see, because even though Audi every team is experimental. Audi is Sauber. They've been around. So, but it's going to be experimental because these are new regs. Let me ask you a question, Roman, because now we're using the MGU-K. I did my homework, which is kinetic. Hasn't Ferrari been using that already, like where they do a lot of charging and stuff through their braking? Yeah. Does Brembo work with MGU-K, or is it also MGU-H? Yeah.
So the issue in the past few years that Ferrari has faced is they haven't been able to upgrade their engine at all. So in 2021, there was an engine freeze by the FIA, meaning that no engine manufacturer could change their engine at all. So because of that, they've been stuck on this version of the MGU-K and MGU-H where it's not efficient at all. The braking of the kinetic power is very weak compared to what Mercedes and Honda can make. So Ferrari has always relied on its engine's braking to make up the deficit to get more kinetic power and more energy through. The issue now is that they have this power to change the engine and whatnot, but they don't have the references and the ability to invest more because they started quite late. They started in 2023, the investment of the engine.
Yeah, I was going to say that but since they're oriented towards the K, would that count as a little bit of a help for them, since that's their orientation anyway, especially for drivers like Leclerc, who's used to that? Because it seems like other teams, like Mercedes, was more focused on the H. So I know that what you're saying is that they're still going to have problems with development, but at least with the driving style, that's what Hamilton had to do last year, and that's what Leclerc is doing. So maybe the drivers will adapt better quick because the other drivers haven't done that. Or have other drivers been using that braking method for engine charging? or for heat generation?
Every Ferrari customer had to do the same thing.
Okay,
but if I remember correctly, Sauber and Haas didn't have to use so much engine braking as Ferrari had to do.
Okay.
So it's a bit unique Ferrari issue.
Yeah, but it's not going to really help. Any experience Ferrari's had with it is not going to help Cadillac because, as you said, they didn't have a lot of research to apply to it and everything. But it's still interesting. Okay, so let's move on to the next thing. We're going to talk about Audi. So Audi through their, is it Le Mans or through Dakar and Le Mans? Is it that is that where they got their technology for the algorithm which they're going to be using to manage the distribution of energy and the ratios and everything? Is it what were the cars that they used as the model, Roman?
The RSQ e-tron.
Yeah, and is that a rally car or?
It is a Dakar rally car, yes.
Dakar rally. Okay, so they're trying something interesting to me, which sounds kind of I don't know how it's going to point out, but from what I read with the notes, they're going to use that in order to manage energy and take into account heat and everything, and it's going to use the algorithm. So it sounds like it's going to take a lot of load off of the driver. And it's not just going to be mechanical anymore. There's a lot of software that's involved, but apparently the software works very well in the rally. Can you speak to that? And what do you think the advantages of it are, or disadvantages, or do you think it's going to make a difference, or are we still dealing in a murky area where we're not sure how it's going to work out? Because I think that the software will be important and everything, but there's still a lot of things you have to worry about with the brakes and everything that you can't get around just by having a computer to do it, because the drivers have to do a lot of work too. What are your thoughts, Roman? Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. It is a very unique approach that Audi has taken with the way they're developing their engine, because we don't have the MGH as a passive in electricity anymore. What Audi is trying to do is that along the straight, the engine clips slightly to regen the power. So, for example, take a 100-meter dash. At 100 meters, every 10 meters, the engine will slightly clip. Yeah. That clipping will generate some power. I don't know the legality of the rules about how FIA is going to reinforce that. But what Audi is trying to do is sacrifice some straight line speed for some energy boost. Because when engine clips, it loses some energy.
It's a little bit like lift and coast a little bit. Maybe I'm wrong. Or is it related to that?
Lift and coast technically, but it is on the straights. So it could be very damning if they really do that more and more, because they can lose a lot of power and a lot of speed.
And the drivers are going to have to work around that if it's at a constant, if it's at a ratio that they know that's going to happen. So that gives them less freedom, because they're going to have to say, okay, well, it's going to be doing that here anyway, so I can't use my boost or things like that. Would it affect the drivers? Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, what they have to do is in the free practices, they have to really dial in the engine settings to make sure that they know where to deploy the energy and make sure where the passive clipping happens. For example, take Monza, for example. If they do the clipping in the turn 1 to turn 2 Monza straight, they're basically screwed, because Monza entire relies on quick, fast speeds, right? You cannot really slow down anywhere. So if they do a lot of it in that corner specifically, in the straights, then they are basically backmarkers. Because even Red Bull struggled with that. Yeah,
that's crazy stuff. Just my gut feelings, I'd rather go with what Ferrari has done than that, or with not with either of these, because the Ferrari thing is going to come with heavy. I think I'd rather just go with the alloys that aren't steel. What are your thoughts, Roman, before we go to Kunle? Just on that little aside that I made.
I understand how you feel about that, but there's a very interesting thing that Audi is doing, is that they're focusing more on the aero side to get advantage for the engine. Meaning they're burning as less as fuel as they can, but they're taking a lot of air intake.
Yeah.
To get
so this is an aerodynamic principle too. And maybe their design of the shape of the car will come into hand with that too. They're gonna sounds like they're gonna be focusing a lot on aerodynamics. Well, this is good, man. We're doing some crazy shit today, man. Kule, what are your thoughts?
We're looking at all these technical things that regard the differences in the engine power units between Audi and Cadillac. But another thing that we have to take into account is also the mental strength of the drivers, or what we call the nut behind the wheel. I do like the drivers that Cadillac have gotten, especially
Bottas. Bottas sounds like he's going to be good at this type of stuff.
Perez and Bottas, they've been right
analytical.
Up there. Sorry, go ahead. And they've been right up there. They're kind of drivers that very strong drivers. If there's anything wrong with that car, I think that those type of drivers are the kind of drivers that will give feedback and bring that car up to spec as much as possible. The problem for Cadillac I have is that this is pretty much an experimental season for them because they're not using their own engine. So, I mean, they already know from the get-go they're not going to, they're not being that, what's the word I would use? Ambitious, yes. Yeah. They lack the ambition because Audi is from the get-go saying, this is my car, I have experience, this is my engine, I have the resources, I'm primed, ready to go. And Cadillac are saying, well, this is our first step inside. We're going to use another engine from another car. We're going to focus on the fuels and the fluids and the aerodynamics because we don't have to worry about focusing on the powertrains. And I think that puts them in a definite disadvantage for this season. But I think Cadillac are not really bothered with this season. I think they're looking for 2027.
Yeah. And that's another disadvantage. Another disadvantage is that Ferrari uses Shell fuels, right? Shell company. They produce the fuel for Ferrari. But for Cadillac especially, they're using BP Castrol. So it's a different fuel manufacturer completely from Ferrari. So not only they have to integrate the engine with the chassis, they have to work with a different fuel manufacturer than the engine manufacturer to make sure it works well with their own engine. So they have to spend dyno time. They have to make sure the fuel works with the Ferrari engine, which is, by the way, optimized for the Shell fuel. There's a lot of other things which, if I'm being honest with you, quite unnecessarily, they have taken a headache on.
This is crazy, man. And let me tell you, I'm a purist because I'm kind of torn because by adding this much chaos and randomness to F1, it's going to be unbelievable. We don't know what we're going to see, so it's entertaining. But at the same time, it's kind of like not rewarding teams that have been working hard with past principles. It's like helping teams. It's sort of like if somebody does well in school, but they change the rules of school, so now people who are coming last could come first. You get my point? It's definitely going to be entertaining to see this year. And then, but like you said, like Kunle said earlier, after a year or two, that's when we started to see which teams are really good because once they master all the variables and find out what needs to be done, then you'll start to find out who are really the engineering teams that will do well. Teams like McLaren will always come up to the forefront. Mercedes, I don't know, Ferrari, man. I guess, has Ferrari ever really had a good car except for when they had Schumacher